When I think of making, my mind automatically goes to my art practice. Like most people, I started painting and drawing at a young age, though through the years I've been more active and less active with art. Sometimes I couldn't wait to come home from school so I could keep working on a painting I was excited about. And other times, the only time I would make art was when I had to in art class. But nonetheless, art has always felt like a very central part of my life, and it's always been something I've been very passionate about. So, I guess to summarize, I started making art when I was a young kid, and then I never really stopped. And now I'm in college majoring in visual arts so that I can keep creating art and learn to create art making spaces for other people. I've engaged in other creative activities in the past that could be considered a form of making. I used to do dance and gymnastics for many, many years when I was a kid, and I technically still am in Penn State Gymnastics Club, but right now we're paused because of COVID. I thought about doing something outside the box and exploring how I engage in making in my life beyond just painting and drawing. But art is the thing I always come back to and has been the most consistent creative outlet for me, so I chose to focus on my painting and drawing for this project. When faced with questions like, who am I as a maker, or what is my making process, and probably the hardest question, why do I make art at all, I didn't really know where to start. My personal making process isn't something I've ever really analyzed before. I mean, I've read about other more accomplished artists' making processes and watched documentaries or YouTube videos on other people making art, but I've never really had to sit down and analyze myself as a maker before. I feel like I know the answers to these questions. I know why I make art, but it's hard to know my answer in words, if that makes sense. For me, at least, one of the big things I like about making art is the lack of words. It's another form of communication that can open a whole different way to communicate ideas. I feel like a lot of the times in my art, I'm splicing together images, patterns, colors, and spaces that I feel make sense together, and then hoping someone else will come along and understand why I think they make sense together. To talk a little more about what my personal tendencies are when illustrating ideas into some kind of visual representation, I found I like more subtle displays of communication in my art. It's hard to find a balance between conveying the theme I want while still leaving room for the viewer to think and create their own connections. I don't want to feel like I'm like screaming something at people that's really obvious. I want like some kind of thought between the viewer and the piece. And of course, trying to balance this all while still creating an interesting composition. Looking back through my old artwork, I noticed that I like arts that's somewhat confusing, like putting two things that don't go together to kind of see what connections people make, because people naturally make connections with anything. And I've also noticed I like and appreciate small ideas. And by small ideas, I mean connections or concepts that seem very simple. I think that simple ideas hold a lot of power because they often have a lot of content and context and information behind them that are overlooked because it seems so obvious, but then when you think about it, there's a lot going on in the background that doesn't come to the surface right away. For example, a photograph of two people sitting at a homey kitchen table drinking coffee in the morning. This is such a simple scene, but there's so much room for meaning and beauty in it if you spend the time to linger on it. To walk you all the way through my typical art making process, I start by deciding what this making session is for. Am I just messing around with materials or just doing some drawing exercise to get my mind off of something? Or am I trying to create an artwork with some kind of meaning? I decided on the second option for this, obviously. So for this painting, I started as I usually do. I was scrolling through Pinterest for art and images I liked. I also noticed that I get a lot of ideas from like song lyrics. I especially like Hosier. And for this piece, I fell down a rabbit hole of broken Roman statues. After I found some kind of direction that I wanted to go in, I find it helpful to not think too critically about the end product and launch into sort of a free association brainstorming exercise. The cracks in the face were so striking because of the sharp, geometric edges contrasting with the soft, dynamic quality of classical Roman sculpture. And then this had me thinking of another statue I saw, and the way the cloth draped over it made it look like the statue was floating, and I thought this was a good example of what could be captured in stone, and then the breaking of the stone is like a reminder of what it is made of. And then I looked more at the face, and I thought it looked like it was crumbling and fraying apart, which reminded me of wax sculpture melting. And another series of images passed through my mind that went like melted wax, candles, Catholic Church, Roman imagery, crumpled Roman statues to kind of make a circle back. And then the whole inspiration brainstorming session probably happened in less than a minute or two, but recalling, explaining, and then typing this into words has taken much, much longer. Which is what I think is so powerful about expressing ideas through art. It's the ability to communicate ideas via images that don't really translate the same way through speaking.